All right. Hello again. Welcome to another Red Cloud webinar. My name is Kobe Kushner, and with us today we have Alexander Woodyer-Sharon. She is the president and CEO of Empress Royalty. She's got over 20 years of experience in the industry, having started her career as an accountant at PwC before becoming an investment banker with Endeavor, where she oversaw $1.5 billion in financings. And with her is also David Rhodes. He is the executive chairman of Empress. He joined Endeavor almost 15 years ago, and he now serves as its managing director. Over his career, he has arranged over $18 billion of funding for mining companies globally. So this is the first time we're hosting Empress Royalty, which is a precious metals royalty and streaming company. So royalty companies are, in my view, one of the best ways to gain exposure to the sector. The model is pretty simple. You pay an upfront investment, and the royalty holder gets a cut of whatever revenues or profits are generated by a mine. And streams operate in a very similar way. Instead of receiving a cut of sales, though, the holder gets to buy metals produced at a discount to spot prices. So in both scenarios, the stream or the royalty can capture the upside at the mine level. And whether this upside is from operational improvements or if it's from new discoveries at the property. So unlike the mining company, the royalty holder is able to benefit from this upside at no additional cost to them. And as a result, royalty companies can operate at very, very low margins. And historically, this has paid off for them. If you look at the performance of some of the bigger, well-known royalty and streaming companies over the last 10 years, you've got Franco-Nevada, the biggest one probably. It's up over the last 10 years. It's up over 350%. Royal Gold up over 100%. Wheaton is up almost 40%. Sandstorm Gold up 80%. And if you compare that over the same time period to gold price itself, gold price is up only 14%. The GDX, that's the Gold Miners Index, is down 43%. And the GDXJ, the Junior Gold Miners Index, is down 70%. So this business model is nothing new. Franco-Nevada arguably pioneered this in the 80s, but more recently, we're starting to see many new entrants into the royalty space. And this includes Empress, which only went public, I believe, around 4 months ago. Is that right? So during today's webinar, Alex and David are going to teach us more about Empress Royalty and their business model. And when they're done their presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session. So just a reminder, you can type your questions into the comment box at any time throughout the webinar. I'm excited to get started, but before we do so, let me first run us through the fine print here. So during this webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. And I would direct listeners to the forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of Empress Royalty's corporate presentation, which we will see momentarily. And you can also find this presentation on the company's website, empressroyalty.com. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Empress Royalty. And with that, we will now turn it over to Alex and David.
Thank you so much, Kobe. Okay, Empress Royalty, strategically partnered to create value through gold and silver investments. Statements, as Kobe mentioned, available in our presentation and on our website, so I encourage people to have a look at these. Highlights. We are a new precious metals royalty and streaming creation company, recently started trading on the TSXV on December 29th and on the OTC in February. Our current portfolio consists of 16 royalty and streaming investments, and we're focused on building a strong portfolio of cash-producing assets, currently looking at over about $75 million of potential investments. We have strategic relationships with Endeavour Financial and Terra Capital, who provide global mining finance networks to generate deal flow. We have exclusive access to Mexican royalty and streaming deals through our strategic alliance with Sendo Banco, which we signed in August. Over 250 years of proven management and board experience in mining finance with $6 billion of completed transactions. So a very strong mining finance team here at Empress. Starting from the beginning, what are royalties and streams? Well, a royalty is where we invest into a mining company and we receive a percentage of revenue from production. A streaming agreement is similar. We invest into a company, but we buy a percentage of either gold or silver at a discounted price. There's three main types of royalty and streaming companies that we believe. There's the exploration. So this is an early stage project, and there's a small royalty usually put on a project. It's early stage, typically inexpensive. There's exploration risk, and there's no guarantee the project will turn into a mine. Successful, there's a long lead time to revenue generation. Then there's the royalty trading or acquisition companies. A royalty is already in place, so this is a simple acquisition. It tends to be a crowded space, paying a premium, and you become part of a competitive bidding process. You don't have a relationship with the mining company or the opportunity to negotiate the royalty agreement. And then the third type is the creation origination, which is where we are focused at Empress. We work with the mining company to create a new royalty or stream. We're able to provide flexible structures to fit into the goals of all parties. And we have a direct relationship with the mining company and management. And this allows us to focus on producing assets, which would bring near-term revenue into Empress. When you look at the investment benefits of a royalty or streaming investments, for the Empress shareholder, it's obviously leveraged to gold and silver price. You're getting access to a globally diverse portfolio of assets. You have limited exposure to capital and operating costs compared to a typical mining company. And we're going to be establishing a dividend policy where a percentage of gross profits are returned to the shareholders at the appropriate time when we have revenue coming into Empress. From the mining company partners perspective, the benefits are we provide non-dilutive and a highly competitive cost of capital. We provide needed upfront capital by immediately monetizing part of its future production. The mining company is able to maintain metal price upside, which allows all parties to share in the rising metal prices. And as mentioned before, it's a flexible structure and less restrictive than typical bank debt financings. Royalty companies, as Kobe mentioned, royalty companies typically outperform the price of gold and the gold miners ETF. This chart here looks at the performance over the last 10 years. When you move into the smaller side of the market for the new royalty companies, typical cycle begins with initial entry market followed by rapid growth. We believe at Empress, as we're early in the life cycle, we're 4 months from listing, we should be able to quickly accelerate into stage 2 through our strategic partners, access to deal flow that we have. Switching into our partnership, which is critical to Empress, let's talk about all three of these, Endeavour, Terra, and Ascendo. Our first is our investment manager. I'm joined here by David Rhodes, who's the managing director of Endeavour Financial and also the Empress executive chairman.
Empress,
sorry, go ahead.
It's about the company. So Endeavour Financial, just for those who don't know, started 30 years ago. We're one of the leading financial advisors and investment managers in the junior to mid-tier mining space. As you can see, our main work over the last 30 years has been providing finance for developing mining companies. Our team is global. We look around the world for good quality assets which we can put into production. Our role here with Empress is twofold. Firstly, obviously, we are one of the founding fathers of the company, so we've got our own capital. And the idea for Empress came from, our work looking to finance mines. 7 years ago, we saw that the large streamers were getting too big. they were looking at $100 million ticket sizes, but there's huge opportunity for the smaller streams, the sub $50 million streams. And that's why we, along with our partners, formed Empress. Our role here, apart from in the formation of Empress, is as investment manager. Our global team is out there looking for, identifying and structuring investments for Empress. Our back office staff look at the cash flow modeling, the financial analysis of the investments, and we undertake with our technical team the due diligence on the assets. So really the full strength of the Endeavour financial team in originating and also then analysing the investments for Empress.
Thank you, David. Our second partner is Terra Capital out of Australia, run by Jeremy Bond, who's also one of our directors and on our investment committee. Terra provides us not only access to Australian projects, Australian listed companies with projects internationally, but as Terra has been an active investor in the Canadian natural resource space over the last 10 years, provides us access to a great capital markets network. Our third partner is, we have a strategic alliance with Ascendo Banco in Mexico. Ascendo Banco is an active investor and lender in the Mexican mining industry with over 30 different companies, both public and private, that are work with Ascendo Banco. A great way of explaining this relationship is Ascendo Banco will provide a debt facility. Say the project needs $10 million to get into production, and they'll provide a $7 million debt facility. We'll provide a $3 million royalty or stream. And as we get into some of our portfolio, you'll be able to see in some of the actual deals we've been doing with them and moving this forward. It's important to note that all three partners, management and board, own roughly 40% of Empress. So we're very much aligned with our shareholders to create value in Empress. When we focus on, our focus is on creation. So when we look at investments, we look at them in 5 ways. The project stage, we're looking for development and production stage projects to either build either to build a project or to expand upon what they already have. We're looking at small to mid-tier, both public and private companies. We're a pure precious metals royalty company. So we're looking at gold and silver as our commodities. Location, looking globally, and we're able to investment size is anywhere from $500,000 up to 20. The sweet spot for us is really that $1 to $10 million investments. When we look at our portfolio, we now currently have 16 investments. We have 2 investments in progress, and those are ones that we have term sheets negotiated and exclusivity in place, and we're progressing on those ones in the due diligence. And then we have over 10 different opportunities that we're looking at in our pipeline. So the first one I want to talk about was this recently announced Manica royalty. This is a $2 million investment into the Manica Gold Project in Mozambique, owned by MMP. This one should be in production in Q3 this year, so hopefully bringing revenue into Empress by the end of the year. This one was brought to us by Endeavour Financial, and obviously has about $1 million annual cash flow that should be coming out of this when it's fully ramped up.
Yeah, and this is an asset that we've been following as Endeavour as one of the key assets going to Empress. As you can see, it's nearly complete. We're funding the last $2 million of the construction, which is obviously a good position to be in. Mozambique, not a lot of people know much about Mozambique, but there's been a huge LNG find in the northern Mozambique. So over $15 million is being invested in that area. And a lot of the top world oil and gas companies are investing alongside their governments funding organizations. So there's been a huge change in the Mozambique legislation and regulations to accommodate that. The key thing for us, as you'll see in a lot of our transactions, is the sponsors. We've known the sponsors of this asset for over 12 years, and they are very experienced in Africa. So they're a good team that we're following and investing in.
The next royalty is the Pinos royalty, which is a $1.5 million investment for Empress. This project is owned by Candelaria and is in Zacatecas, Mexico. We have a 1% royalty over the entire project. This one should be in production beginning Q1, Q2 next year. This one, this 7-year mine life, potential for mine life extension. This is based upon just one vein out of 7 on the property. So we expect this one to get a lot more interesting moving forward. We've also just recently announced that we've executed on the Talahueto silver stream. This is owned by Telson Mining in Durango, Mexico. This project is currently half built, and this is a great example of us working with our partners to provide a full financing solution. Ascendo Banco is providing a $12 million debt facility. We're providing the $5 million stream, and then Endeavor and Ascendo have helped assist with partake in the equity raise they've done for $8 million. So a full $25 million financing solution. And this one, as I mentioned, production the end of this year, beginning of next year. Also have an exploration portfolio, which we picked up through our spin out in July. Early stage gold exploration projects. There's 13 of these across Canada through the spin out of Big Ridge. So exciting to have, but our focus is much more on production stage projects, which moves us into our investments in progress. So these are ones that we're working on right now. We have term sheets negotiated, exclusivity in place, and we're currently going through due diligence on these, both technical and legal. There's a potential for us to do a $10 million one in Peru, which would double the size of their production, and then to do a $2.5 million investment into a project in Kenya. Also, this would increase by a third. So if these ones advance for Empress, they would bring immediate revenue into Empress upon closing.
I think, Alex, just to summarize, as you can see on the previous slides for the audience, we've put in place our development projects and investments that are over the next 6 months to probably 9 months will be generating cash flow for the company. And now we're concentrating on immediate cash flow assets, these 2 production assets you see. As soon as we finish our due diligence and we're able to invest, and obviously they'll produce immediate revenue for the company. So we're just building our portfolio to make sure we have immediate and additionally, obviously, future assets coming on stream as well to produce revenue.
Excellent. And the ability for me to move the slide forward. Okay, there we go. It moved off me. So we have a potential pipeline of investments that we're looking at. This is a flavor and sample of the ones that we're currently in discussions and negotiating term sheets on. You can see it's a combination of royalty and streams, location Mexico, Indonesia, Brazil, Ghana, Peru, Australia. We are looking globally. David mentioned we're very much focused on production stage projects, gold and silver, and the investment size is, and that's what we mentioned, the smaller side of the market.
Yeah, I suppose one thing which people may look and go, okay, you're a little bit different to the other companies out there, and that's really the breadth of the geographical portfolio we're looking at. And that's based really on the experience of us as a global team. We will only recommend to Empress assets and locations that we have worked in before and we've successfully been able to transact. Obviously, the assets worked, we know it's been repaid and it's operating. So where we are comfortable in a mining jurisdiction, we'll recommend them to Empress. So all these assets are in places where we have the track record, the team has the experience of putting an asset into production. We know the environment, regulatory, technical, environmental, social. So we have that added advantage of being able to move to places that others don't. And luckily we've got the experience of operating there, so we can then also obviously gain the benefit of having limited to, in some cases, minimal competition for creating these streams.
And we're also working with companies that we know. So in a lot of these cases, we've gone out to groups that we know that they could double the production, a bit of extra cash. We're working with management teams that we know have the ability to get things in production or to keep on a good production schedule. So switching over to our potential revenue, just, again, encourage everyone to look at the forward-looking statements in our deck and also on our website. When we're looking at these revenue, it's based upon $1,750 gold, $21 silver. And this revenue is based upon these three initial investments. So that's the Pinos royalty, the Manica royalty, and the Talahueto silver stream. This does not take into account anything else that we're looking to advance in the production stage. So you can see here gold ounces in 2022, potential about 3.5, 2023 getting closer, just over 5,000, and then 2024 moving closer to 7. Potential forecast in US dollars and revenue, 2022 over $5 million US, 2023 just over 7 million, and over 9 million in 2024. Again, that's not advancing any other of the projects that we're looking at that are already in production that would bring faster revenue to Empress. Here you look at the market positioning. We obviously trade a large discount on all key metrics compared to our peers in the market, or in the royalty space as a whole. So who we are, our board of directors, you've got David and myself online right now. And as I mentioned, Jeremy Bond is also on our investment committee. We have Paul Mainwaring, who's a CFA from London, Rick Mazur, a director, geologist from Vancouver, Wes, a mining engineer from Toronto, Natasha Kieran just recently joined us, an experienced mining lawyer, and also brings some great corporate governance experience to the board. We've also just recently announced we've appointed Javier Reyes as strategic advisor to Empress. He's the chairman and CEO of Ascendo Banco, so it gives us even a stronger relationship in Mexico and a better access to a network in South America. And then David Lang joined as our technical advisor, over 35 years of mining engineering and operations experience, held senior positions at Equinox, Endeavor Mining, True Gold. So great to have both of these gentlemen as advisors to the company. We've also got management. Rich Biggle is our VP Americas, who joins us from New York, helps us originate deals in South America as well as Mexico. And we have seasoned corporate governance specialists, Dan and Doris as our CFO and corporate secretary. When we look at our capital structure, we currently have just under $20 million cash, no debt. Shares outstanding just over 104,000. Warrant 17, option just under 9. So fully diluted 130 million. Our shareholders, strategic management partners, management and board own 38%, institutional investors 32%, and that's roughly 30% in the public float. So what have we achieved so far? In July, we acquired the initial 13 gold exploration royalties, and we spun Empress out. In August, we signed the strategic alliance, did a small finder's financing to position in Endeavor, Terra, and Ascendo. We did a pre-listing financing in October last year, which allowed us to execute on the Candelaria royalty. We started trading on December 29th on the TSXV, a direct listing. We did the Manica royalty in Q1, started trading on the OTC. We recently disclosed a $16 million financing, which is allowing us to execute on the additional transactions. And we've just announced that we've executed on the silver stream with Telson for $5 million. So, in summary, we are a newly listed early-stage precious metals royalty and streaming creation company with a portfolio of 16 investments. We are focused on the creation of financing solution for mining company partners to either get them into production or expand upon what they already have. We're building a pipeline with over $75 million of cash-generating potential investments. We have strong management team and with strategic relationships with Endeavor Financial and Terra Capital, exclusive Mexican royalty and streaming deals to the strategic alliance with Ascendo Banco. And we're forecasting revenue towards the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, with the plans to establish a dividend policy at the appropriate time. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess we'll hand it over to Kobe for questions.
All right, thanks, guys. That was another very informative presentation. So just a reminder to everyone that you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. And, looking through this here, we have plenty of overlapping questions, so I'll do my best to combine them. And I know you've already touched on some of these here, but to kick things off, let's talk strategy here. So how does the process work, the acquisition process work? Do companies tell you or your partners that they're looking to raise money through a royalty or stream, or is it ever the other way around where you seek out potential royalty acquisitions and let the company know?
It's a combination of both. We have a very vast network through Endeavor, Zendo, and Terra. So we're able to, there are groups that become known to us that are looking for that additional capital to get into production or expand. And they're looking for that final piece of the puzzle and they're able to get involved. And there's other opportunities where we're much more aggressive going out to management groups we know that need additional capital to expand further on what they have going on.
Right. And one of the challenges that royalty companies face is that there's often a bidding war, really. And I think, David, you mentioned earlier in this presentation that you guys, a lot of the time, you don't have competition. So I'm curious, maybe you can touch on that a bit. Why is it that you don't have competition here? And do you still encounter, the odd bidding war from time to time?
Yeah, we're not in the business of bidding for existing streams of royalties. So, someone who's, as I think Alex alluded on the earlier slide, there's three types of companies. Ones that are in the first stage, looking at resource type royalties, and then there's guys who are actually acquiring existing royalties. And that's really where it's quite competitive, because anyone who's got a royalty or a stream, they put it up for sale. And they send that info then to anyone in the world. And obviously all the streaming companies start bidding, and that's where you get these bidding wars. We're not doing that. We're using really, our investment banking, our skill sets of the team to create new ones. So we are reaching out to companies and saying, look, we can provide you with enough capital here to expand your production, get hold of these great precious metal prices, you make a return, we make a return, you're maximizing your asset. And that's what we're doing. So we're reaching out, creating solutions. Telson is a good example, where Ascenda Banco had a relationship with Telson. They brought us in, not only as Empress, but also on the private placement side. And we found, $25 million, which will put that mine back into, finish the construction, but put it back into production. So there was some historic production there as well. And that's creating a solution, which is what a company needs. And no disrespect to some of the other streaming companies, they're just streaming companies. They don't have the skill sets to have a full package together. And that's where we're able to, get that advantage, and in that instance, not have a bidding process.
Interesting. Yeah, I found that aspect of Empress super interesting, because a lot of the other new entrants into the space are companies that are buying existing royalties. That's where they're choosing to focus on. But you guys are actually out there and you're competing with the big players. You're competing with, like Franco-Nevada and whatnot. But at the same time, sorry, Don.
You say that, but the reason why we set up Empress is because Franco Wheaton, they want $100 million ticket size. They're not going to do our size. So in our space, they're not going to, Franco Wheaton wouldn't look at a $10 million stream. It's not going to get their time and effort in that sense. We though set ourselves up to do that type of transaction. We're definitely not going to bid. If someone's selling something, we're not paying a premium for it. We're not getting in a bidding war. I have a view, if someone's selling something, it's usually because someone's going to pay them way too much money. Otherwise, you wouldn't sell it. We're not that. We've got too much experience. We've got too much knowledge of the market to get into that kind of process. I'm not belittling the guys who do it. Their model works. You can see how successful some have been. But we've got the skill sets to obviously create more value for our shareholders by, and it is hard work. Creating something new is much harder than buying it with a paper. That's someone else has done. But the value in that is really comes from our shareholders with creating a better return for them.
So understanding that you guys are focused on creating new royalties, would you be open to acquiring existing royalties if the opportunity came up, or is that just not your MO at all?
Never say never, but for us, we would only consider that if it was part of a bigger story and a part of a bigger picture of something else that was going on with it. We've got so much opportunity on the creation side and providing those financing solutions for mining companies. So much opportunity right now that we're looking at. So we are staying true to that on the creation side of things.
Yeah, it has to be a mega discount to what the NAV or the value is. Why would someone sell if that was the case? So it's not the market for that. Maybe in years to come, the market may obviously be valuing them differently, but at the moment it's not.
So speaking of discounts, let's talk more about your investment criteria in terms of project economics. Do you guys have a certain target in terms of IRR, NPV, minimum cash flow that you guys are aiming for when you are out there trying to acquire royalties?
What we're doing is really bespoke.
Create royalties.
Yeah, what we're doing is really bespoke. So it's very situational. Each case that we're looking at, it depends. Each case is unique in what we're looking at. So when we start talking with a company, it depends on what other restrictions they have, whether they've already got a lot of the royalties or streams. So it's very individual of what we're looking at. Obviously, we want to get the best returns we can, but it's hard to put sort of certain parameters around it because, again, each situation is different, whether they're development, whether they're in production. There's different matrix that go into the analysis of all of it.
But I think just to give people a broad idea, just look at the deals we're doing at the moment, what we're getting in returns, price per now. So it gives an indication of how we view the returns we should be getting for the creation side of the business. It's harder work, and therefore we as a business and shareholders should be rewarded for that.
Yeah, in my experience, that's one of the benefits that smaller companies generally get to enjoy, is that they get to be more flexible in terms of their investment mandate. I mean, back when I was working for a major, if you wanted to propose any kind of investment, it was 15% IRR, and if it doesn't reach that, then too bad, your project doesn't make it.
Yeah, we're not looking at 15%.
So more from a broader perspective on your investment criteria, let's talk jurisdiction. And do you guys tell us what your preferences for where you want to do business?
As David mentioned earlier, we're going into countries we've been before. So we know how to operate there. We've got the experience and, had the successes there. So we're able to look globally because of that. Obviously, we've got quite a bit of focus in Latin America of our pipeline. That's one through the relationship with Ascendo Banco and sort of focusing on Mexico a little bit at the moment, but also within the opportunities in Latin America, there tend to be the smaller size projects that fit within what we're looking for, the higher grade, less capital to get into production. But we're definitely seeing opportunities as well in Africa and Asia. So we're looking globally. And David, perhaps you want to touch more on that, but yeah, we are looking globally, but it's countries we've had experience in.
Yeah, and mining countries in that sense. So, we've got to be comfortable there. And that's the key thing. We're obviously growing our portfolio, so we're not going to get too racy at this stage. Everything, as the portfolio develops, obviously then we'll be broader in our views on geographical regions.
Let's talk about, we have a question on Mozambique. Where in that country is your royalty located? The project, sorry. Yeah,
so the project's next to the Zimbabwe border. So it's really part of that massive Zimbabwe gold belt. So it's just it's a quick drive to get to Zimbabwe. So it's a middle west.
Yeah. Okay. So, Alex, I think you've kind of answered this question already, but maybe let's dive a little deeper into it. You said you've got a lot of exposure to Mexico. How much of that was organic, would you say, versus how much of that was strategic?
It was, The opportunities with Candelaria and Telson were ones that were brought to us through our relationship with Ascendo Banco. Both of them, obviously, we love the Pinos project, we love the Talahueto project, so we took advantage of that. So yeah, it was strategic. It was the right opportunities. We were able to get the right returns we wanted. I believed in the management teams of both being able to deliver and get into production. But again, we are looking globally, and I've got quite a few other ones we're looking at in South America at the moment.
Are there certain countries that you're willing to name that you guys just won't do business in?
Yes, there are, but probably best not to name publicly.
Okay.
I mean, we are risk averse when it comes to countries. We've all got experiences. Probably about 20 years ago, I did a transaction in Venezuela. That country's changed a lot since those days 20 years ago. Just as an example, not mentioning them as a country, but obviously, we are very much assessing each country as it develops. So certain countries are definitely no-go for us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the political landscape of countries changes all the time. So,
and to be honest, that's part of mining. They're always in.
Yeah.
And apart from obviously the Canadian and the US, and the US has permitting constraints, it's part of mining. That's kind of the risk assessment we have to take and make.
And that's a great thing about having a diversified portfolio too.
Yeah, definitely. So you kind of already spoke about your exploration portfolio in Canada, but let's talk a little more about it. This was a spin out. You inherited this portfolio, right, from Big Ridge. Which projects in that portfolio are you guys most excited about?
I think there's a lot of exciting ones in there. They're all very early stage exploration projects, and I would encourage everyone to have a look at Big Ridge's website and look at the projects that they're focused on. I think that's probably the most appropriate way to look at them.
Right. Okay, so what about commodities now? Like, how open are you guys to doing deals outside of gold and silver? And why gold and silver as well?
So we are a pure precious metals royalty company. We are only looking at gold and silver investments. We feel that's bringing the most value to shareholders, and that's where we can get the best valuation for the company. We've had discussions in the past as the idea of Empress was being formed and put together about other commodities. David's smiling at me.
We are purely because we get great opportunities thrown in some of the base metal space thrown at us, and we have that debate. And we can make great returns, but no, we're keeping to what our true mission is, which is precious metals.
Right. So we've both touched on the potential sources of upside that you can enjoy at the mine level. So someone here is curious that when you're evaluating investment opportunities and maybe even looking at your current portfolio here, do you guys have a preference for a certain type of upside? As in, are you guys looking more so at exploration potential, or are there assets where you look at and you think, okay, there's probably going to be some major operational improvements in the coming years that we can benefit from?
Yeah, I think on the one way to answer that, and obviously each transaction is pretty unique and all different in how we look at it. But we look at probably a mine life of about 7 years. When we do our analysis and look at our returns on our price per ounce and look at our calcs. So anything above 7 years is really, upside for us and how we look at our investments. And as you know, most mines go on for way more than 7 years. So that's really an upside on that side of things. Upside in exploration, upside in mine life. So they're the two things we look at. The Pinos royalty, as Alex mentioned, that's one of 7 veins. So it's got huge exploration and production blue sky, and that's the excitement and attraction of that. A lot of the production assets we're looking at, it's just really, as soon as we provide capital, they start expanding, and we always expect most mills and most processing plants to be able to do above nameplate capacity. We don't include that in our calcs, but obviously that's an upside when it comes to the production assets.
Good answer. So let's talk partnership now. You've mentioned you've got 3 major partners. Someone is wondering how much of the heavy lifting it is that they do, whether it's finding opportunities or evaluating them versus how much is done in-house. And specifically, they want to know about the technical expertise. Is that done in-house, or is that outsourced through your partners?
So we work as a collaborative team. I work closely with Endeavour Financial, the financial modelers, their technical experts, mining engineers, geologists. So we work closely with Endeavour to support us in that. We have Ascendo as well that we work closely with, and their mining team. So we work, it's a collaborative effort. We're all looking for opportunities. We're hands-on when we get the opportunity in terms of negotiations, and being able to execute on those deals.
Right. And looking at your current and potential portfolio as well, were all of these sourced from your partners initially, or were they? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So with, when we obviously the initial 13 that we sort of said inherited, the exploration projects, but when it comes to the near-term producers, Manica and Telson were brought to us through Ascendo Banco, and Endeavour Financial brought to us the Manica opportunity.
Yeah, and just, we do have, I know the slide says it, but we have a lot of opportunities here. So it is chewing up a lot of time. And as you can see, the management team of Empress, for this size of company, you've got to keep it lean and mean. Costs do matter at this stage. So we are taking on using a lot of the Endeavour Ascendo team to support the management at Empress.
Yeah, I mean, we're a young company. We're growing. We just got going. We've only been 4 months. So we're able to use the expertise of Endeavour and everyone of our partners coming together. And, as we grow and we get into the revenue generation and we sort of grow to that stage, then we'll look at expanding our team out and bringing the right technical experts. And we can attract that level of experience as well when we get the company to that stage. But we're still a young company and we're growing.
For sure. And I imagine, being able to outsource a lot of your work, and, maybe I shouldn't use that word, being able to partner with these other companies.
Partnering.
Helps keep your G&A costs low.
Yeah. And they're aligned. They're all shareholders in our company. So everyone is aligned to create value at Empress.
Right. So talking about Ascendo now, how did you guys secure exclusive access to their opportunities? Because that sounds like a huge competitive advantage. Yeah,
we were, with the introduction was made to us this summer for me through my network. We started chatting with Javier, and he's had Jeremy Bond knew him for a long time as well. Endeavour knew him, so it was sort of a natural fit for us to have this relationship. Javier had the same vision. Obviously being for a royalty company as David, myself, and Jeremy did, as well as he also, is involved in the smaller side of mining, that $10 million, $20 million size. So very much aligned in our vision and our strategy.
Yeah, we just have as a business a lot of touch points with Javier so it just makes sense. I mean, you work with people and you trust, and you can work with, and that's where we became the natural fit.
So what was that?
Should ask
that? Sorry, go on, David.
I was just saying, you probably should ask Javier next time
why he liked us.
Maybe we'll have him on the webinar next time too. So I guess, was this exclusivity just kind of given to you guys through your relationship, or did you guys have to pay for it in the form of shares or cash?
So yeah, so we have the agreement that if they find opportunities, we get exclusive access to them. And if the opportunities make sense, then we can advance them. So there was no payment for that agreement. It's a simple agreement between the two companies. But Javier is also, or Arsenio Banco is also a shareholder in Empress. So they have, alongside Endeavor and Terra have a good stake in the company. So they're aligned to see us.
Here's an interesting one. Someone wants to know if you are Neil's daughter.
I am, yes.
Okay. I don't know who Neil is, but the name sounds familiar.
He's my dad. He's been, I kind of grew up within the mining industry, as he's been in the industry for too many years to count.
Yeah, and Neil, by hook or crook, actually set up Endeavor Financial. So 30 years ago. So
30 years ago, he established.
The world comes around in a big circle.
Right on. So that answers that question.
It's in my DNA.
So let's talk about your valuation gap. You mentioned that you guys trade around 0.9 NAV, whereas your peers, the typical royalty company, trades around 1.3 times NAV. So why does this valuation gap exist in your opinion? And what are some of the upcoming catalysts that investors could look forward to that you think will help close this gap?
I'll just sort of touch on a few points, and David, if you want to chat after me about this, but we just listed in December, and when we we had done a financing in a private round in October, the paper had a 4-month hold. So that paper became free trading in February, and I think we saw that in the market. And then obviously we just did a financing. What we did on that last financing is we filed a shelf prospectus, which allows us to raise up to 200 million over the next 2 years, recognizing how we want to grow and develop this company. So with that, the last financing was free trading. I think we're seeing some effects on that on the share price at the moment, and hopefully we're through that. But we're just staying true to our business strategy. We've delivered on, we delivered on Pinos last year. We've just delivered and funded Manica, and we're executed on Telson, and then we'll be funding that in the different stages. So we are delivering on our strategy, and we haven't wavered from that.
And you mentioned, potential dividend strategy. What was that, next year or the year after? But do you guys have a target dividend yield?
We are, and this is one of my bugbears for the marketplace. I have a view that mining companies should become yielding assets for the investment class, as an investment class. So as a chairman and part of the investment committee, we will be recommending, when we have the company stable, a good portfolio, sufficient revenue coming in, sufficient income projections, to recommend to the board to put in a dividend policy. We haven't put that forward yet. That won't be this year. It'll be something we develop next year. So watch this space in respect to that. But it's definitely something I believe mining has to become a yielding asset class for investors and attract those investors into the marketplace.
Right. Now, before we wrap things up with this last question, we'll just touch on this one last time. So, there's many new entrants into the royalty space, and maybe just remind us why Empress is different and why investors should be paying attention to your story.
We are a new company, and we're focused on the creation of new royalties and streams. So by doing that, we're getting mines into production or expanding, which would bring revenue quickly into Empress. So we're revenue focused, and we're a pure gold and silver investment. So you're getting the precious metal side of it purely, which obviously gives fantastic returns. And again, we're young, so we're just starting to grow. We're just starting to deliver. And we've got a lot more stuff that we're looking at. And hope to be able to come back and share some news in the future about how we're continuing to deliver and building this company out. Probably actually the most important point that I should have said first is we're able to do this through our strategic partners. working with Endeavor, Terra, and Ascendo, we have unique access to deal flow, and that's how we're able to execute on all of this on the business strategy.
I really like how you answered that, and I want to leave it there. But there's one last question here that came in, and I missed it. So it actually came in earlier, and I should have asked it before. But this person wants to know if you have thought about having your royalties paid in gold and silver rather than being paid in cash. Is that even an option?
David?
So the nature of a royalty is it's a revenue-based calc, so that comes as dollars in that case. But a stream does come in the physical, so you can get paid in gold or silver on a stream. So depending on how we structure it, there is a possibility on the stream as well. You could get silver or gold, but royalties are usually dollar-based.
Yeah.
And, okay. And that's one thing as well, is because we are structuring and creating new opportunities, sometimes we do royalties, sometimes we do streams, sometimes a combination of both. It depends on the individual project. Streams are able to structure in certain jurisdictions. We're able to get a byproduct if it's silver and do it that way. It really does depend on each situation, how we're structuring it, but we can be flexible of the royalty and stream opportunities.
Right. So we'll leave it there. Alex, David, can't thank you guys enough for joining me and all of our viewers today. It was an absolute pleasure to host both of you. And
thank you so much for your time.
Of course. And to our viewers, if you want to learn our thoughts on Empress as well as other companies that we watch, let me just remind you that we publish all of our research on our website. It's totally free of charge. And another reminder that our next webinar will be taking place Monday morning. We'll have Dave Talbot. He will be sitting down with Lotus Resources, and he will be discussing uranium. And that's May 3rd at 9 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.